very much. And thank you all for coming to my talk. I'm going to look at subjective information processing awareness for intelligent charging agents. And I'm mostly presenting the work of my colleagues. So the use case we wanted to look at was CarSharing. So let's say we have a CarSharing fleet that is utilizing smart charging to charge their cars in times of high energy availability, thus helping to stabilize the power grid and also maybe promoting peak shaving. And we also have users that want to book these cars for their various trips and errands. And some of these bookings might be during times when it would be better for the car to stay plugged in at the charging station and be utilized for intelligent charging. So let's say your Aunt Hilde has some heavy groceries she wants to transport from the supermarket to her home. And she is free around noon and she's free in the evening, so she goes on the CarSharing app and she tries to find an available car that she wants to book. And maybe because of higher solar energy available around noon, it would be better if she would book the car for the evening, but she doesn't know that. So the question is, how can we empower people to make good booking decisions, and how can we communicate limitations in the use of car-sharing fleets due to intelligent charging to the user? So let's say we have an algorithm that calculates the estimated fit of a planned car-sharing booking of a battery electric vehicle with the potential use of said vehicle for intelligent charging around the same time. We want users to experience the information processing of the algorithm as transparent, and we also want them to trust the proposition of the algorithm. So when I say trust, I mean the definition by Jacobi, so the cognitive mechanism to give the illusion of anticipating intended behavior. So users' perceived ability to understand and predict the actions of an AI. And there's some research that says that additional explanation can increase trust in AI, which is good. Explanations are mechanisms by which a system communicates information about its inner workings to the user, thus promoting transparency and also understandability and predictability. But there's also some research that says that explanations can have undesirable effects. They can lead to information overload, they can lead to complacency, and they can be especially harmful if they're more persuasive than they are informative. So this can lead to situations where trust is unwarranted because the user might think that he's able to comprehend the reasoning of the AI, but they are not actually able to comprehend it, and this could lead to some not so nice situations. So we don't want that. We want to provide explanations to the user that promote trust through greater transparency and predictability. What was our actual research question in the study I'm going to present to you next? We wanted to examine how users' trust in their ability to perceive, understand, and predict the actions of an AI is affected by the amount of given information. So we did an online experiment, it was a between subjects design with repeated measures, and participants were repeatedly shown the system's calculated estimated fit of a planned car-sharing booking with the potential use of said booking for intelligent charging. And we manipulated the explanation subjects were given by manipulating the amount of information on the inner workings of the system that were presented to the subject. And in the end of the experiments, participants were asked to predict some estimated fits themselves. So that was kind of interesting, but I'm going to elaborate on the design of the further slides. So dependent variables were, on the one hand, situation information processing awareness. We measured this through the ZIPA scale, and ZIPA is basically the experience of being enabled by a system to perceive, understand, and predict the information processing of said system. You can either use it as a 6-item scale with one bit construct, or you can divide it in 3 subscales for perceived transparency, understandability, and predictability. And we also had a more objective measure for predictability. So, as I said, participants were asked to predict some estimated fits themselves, and we measured how far off their predictions were from the estimated fit that the system would have calculated. And we also measured trust through the facets of system trustworthiness scale. This is a 5-item scale specifically designed to assess trust in information interfaces. So I told you we manipulated the amount of information, and we had 3 groups. And if you were in the low information group, this is basically what you saw. So you got information on a car sharing booking, and you got the information how much tokens this booking would cost. the tokens were the estimated fit. A high amount of tokens would mean a bad fit, a low amount of tokens would mean a good fit. And the low information group only got information about their own booking. If you were in the medium information group, you not only got information about your own booking, but also about the previous booking and the following booking. So how far are those apart? What's the needed state of charge for the next booking? And if you were in the high information group, you also got information from the grid. So what's the expected share of green energy around the time? What's the probability of a peak load during the time of the booking? And these were all informations that were actually used to calculate the number of tokens that users represented. But yeah, not everybody got that information. So what was the concrete experimental design? We started with a briefing in which participants got some information on smart charging, just to make sure that they would understand the use case. And they were also informed that their observations would be relevant because there was a later performance block, and if they performed well, they had the possibility to gain some money. And after a more general questionnaire, there were 5 observation blocks with 10 bookings each. So you would be shown the booking, the number of tokens this trip would cost, and the information depending on which group you were in, and you had to look at those for a specific amount of time. And after 10 bookings, you were asked to fill out the ZIPA and the FOST scale. And after the 5th observation block, there was the performance block, in which participants were shown 20 different bookings with the additional information, but they were not shown the number of tokens this trip would cost, and they had to predict this themselves. During this block, they were not shown their current performance, but in the end of the performance block, they got a feedback on their overall performance in the performance block, and then there was a short debriefing. So, what was our sample? We had 57 participants. They were mostly students. We recruited via our mailing list, so the mean age was rather low, with 24, and 13 participants identified as male and 2 identified as daters. If we look at the results, let's maybe first look at the more objective measure for predictability. As I told you, we looked at how far off the estimations of the participants were from the actual estimations of the system, and we summed up all those deviations. So what you can see here is the mean sum of deviations in the predicted estimated fit between the 3 different groups. So a low score would mean a good performance, a high score would mean a not so good performance. I think overall the score varied between 500 and 3000, so there was a lot of variation, but as you can see, there was no significant variation between the 3 information groups. But we also had some subjective measures, and this is where some effects can be seen. So if we look at, we did some planned contrast analysis for the FOST scale and also for the ZIPA scale, and we weighed them based on the amount of information that participants had or had not. And our hypothesis was that more information should also lead to higher reported trust. So you can see here this was the case for the FOST scale. We have some significant effects after the 2nd observation block and after the 4th and 5th observation block, some small to medium effect sizes. And for the ZIPA scale, we also have a small effect after the 5th observation block. And if we look at the subscales of ZIPA, we can see that there's no effect for the perceived transparency of the information processing, but there are some small to medium effects for the perceived understandability of the information processing after the 3rd and 5th observation block. Yeah, and also after for the perceived predictability of the information processing for every block except for the 1st block. So just to sum up those results, presenting more information resulted in a significant difference in ZIPA, mainly through the perceived understandability and predictability of the information processing, and it also resulted in a significant difference in trust, which makes sense. ZIPA and trust are highly correlated constructs, and if the perceived understandability and predictability of a system is higher, then trust in the system should also be higher. But none of this led to an actual improvement in subject prediction of the estimated fit. So what do we do with this information? It seems we've gotten ourselves into an explainability pitfall here. An explainability pitfall after Esan and Riegel is basically an unanticipated negative downstream of effects from AI explanations. So while it was not our intention to persuade users, and technically the high information group had more information or the necessary information to make better predictions than the low information group, this was not the case. So our additional information did not add any objective value to subjects' ability to predict. This may have been the case due to a high workload, so maybe the information was not properly processed. It was too much information in a too short amount of time to actually process this. And there were some interpersonal differences in the prediction of the estimated fit, but those could not be explained through the information. So further studies should investigate what the reasons for these differences are and use those findings to develop metrics that are easier and faster to learn by users so that we can develop systems and explanations for these systems that actually help users to align their perceived ability to predict with their objective ability to predict. And the trust in the system is actually warranted. So these are some of our primary sources. And thank you all for your attention.